presentation with how to recycle like a champion, and I gotta say, Lincoln is recycling like a champion. And we promised you back when we were doing the educational campaign and talking about a cardboard ban that we would get back to you on giving you some results of what happened with that cardboard ban. So that's what I'm here to do today. So back about a year ago, and sorry we didn't get here on April 1st, but we had some other things we had to deal with that following week that it took me away from this presentation. But the City of Lincoln took a historic step to reduce waste and extend the life of the landfill. And we also launched this educational campaign of taking it to the bin. We did a waste characterization study, I think the October of 2017, to give us a before snapshot of what was happening at the landfill. And a waste characterization study actually looks at the materials coming to the landfill, and we sort everything out. We account for everything that comes in the trucks, and we assign a percentage of how much of that material is actually coming into the landfill at that time. We wanted to get a snapshot then again later after the ban had been in effect for a number of months. We did it again in October of 2018, and that's what I'm here to talk to you about. So basically the goals there for the cardboard ban was to reduce the amount of cardboard going to the landfill and to reduce the pounds of waste per person sent to the landfill. And this is what we saw. This is pretty huge when you look at these numbers. We had almost 37 million pounds of cardboard going to the landfill in 2017 when we did our waste characterization study. And in the following waste characterization study, that was down to approximately 8.8 million pounds. If you look at that on a per person per year basis, that goes from 118 pounds per person per year down to 28 pounds per person per year. And if you look at it a little bit different way, it's basically we dropped 90 pounds from each of us from the amount of cardboard that we put in the landfill. So it's a great reduction, certainly. So you might ask, why is there any cardboard going to the landfill? Wasn't it completely banned? As you know, recycled cardboard is defined in our municipal code, and it includes cardboard that is clean. We do actually want to see contaminated cardboard going to the landfill and not into our recyclables, because those could potentially ruin that material. So we expected that there would always be some residual cardboard going to the landfill at any time. And here's just another little way of looking at it in terms of what the total is. We've gone from a 9% of the material going into the landfill down to 2% of the material is cardboard right now. So I did some equivalency here. This is based on EPA website to take a look at what this actually means. And I think the trees are pretty obvious. If you're taking cardboard and making it into other paper products, you can actually make it over again 6 or 7 times. That's why corrugated cardboard is really as valuable as it is. Saves us about 40,000 trees, and that equates to about 30 million pounds of CO2 emissions. That's calculated in kind of an interesting way. It takes less energy to make material out of recycled material. That's one thing. Obviously, if the trees aren't cut down, they're consuming CO2 in the atmosphere, so that's another way to calculate it. These calculations are from EPA, and they're based upon a number of different things, but the 30 million pounds of CO2 emissions is pretty impressive. And if you convert that to energy, that's about 1,652 homes, or 1.5 million gallons of gas. So we've done a really great job. We're also going to look at the drop-off sites here in a minute. This is kind of dark and hard to see, but if you can see that top line there was back in December, we had the highest amount of poundage of material cardboard going from our drop-off sites to the processors. That was 662,600 pounds. So we did see a big jump in what's going to our drop-off sites. We don't know if that is going to start coming down anytime soon or leveling out, but again, with the spring weather, and I think you probably heard some issues with some of our drop-off sites, we have seen a big flux of cardboard coming to our drop-off sites once again. And I gotta say, we didn't do it alone. We had a lot of help out there, and these guys are some of them, but certainly our refuse haulers that were out in the neighborhoods being our basic ambassadors and talking to their customers did an absolutely great job of making sure that the cardboard was out and what to do with the cardboard, telling folks what to do with it and how to take care of it and how they can take care of it. And I guess the other thing to consider is every hauler in Lincoln does offer recycling services. And it is convenient and something people should take a look at, and you don't have to break down your boxes when you use them. So it goes in the back of their truck and gets compacted there. So what are we going to do now? We are continuing monitoring. We're certainly monitoring our drop-off site activity to see if there's some changes that we'll have to make there, whether it's an additional service or whether it's we split some of the, in terms of where we go in terms of processing so we can manage it a little bit more effectively. We do have some issues when there is mechanical breakdowns with some of the equipment that our contractor has. It doesn't take much to upset the system. So we're certainly monitoring that drop-off site volume and activity. And we're continuing to look at waste characterization studies at the landfill, and we're trying to look at what is in the waste, the other waste that we talked about today. That certainly may tell us what we should be doing next or what areas we should be focusing on. That was part of our little options to, once we did the cardboard ban, to look at what the next steps would be. And I think we need to regroup and take a look at what those things are. And certainly this information gives us a lot more data.
You know, Donna, we have drop-off sites at some of our stores, and I asked to take a look at the total pounds of, and it's a huge dramatic increase. And I'm just speculating, and that's why it's important that we get to the actual data on it. But it seems like people are approaching it like, well, I have to take my recycling, you know, to one of these drop-off sites. I might as well take my aluminum cans and my glass and all this other stuff. So I wonder, are you tracking for other things like the glass, aluminum, and...
We are, and we have seen a little bump. I mean, it's not been as dramatic as the cardboard, obviously, but we've seen a nice bump in the other recyclables as well. So yes, we do have that data if you want to take a look at that. We'll be looking at our recycle processor volumes and basically the collector surveys. Unfortunately, that data comes in about a year after the fact, so we won't be getting the data from 2018 until this June, and we'll be analyzing that as quickly as possible to take a look at what that first year of our cardboard ban looks like. So with that, I'll say happy cardboard banniversary and take any questions.
Happy banniversary. Are there other questions from the council?
Yeah.
So wait, so Donna, I'm just blurting it out.
Why don't
There's
you
a protocol
continue,
here.
continue your voting out there, since you kind of let off earlier, and then we'll get to Carl after you finish.
Okay, so you're gonna have the
If she-
numbers
yeah,
of
if she's
other
voting.
recyclables tracked sometime in June, correct?
From the recycle processors and from the recycle haulers, yes, we'll have their next surveys come in June. Takes us a while usually to get everybody in before we can talk about that. So probably late summer, I would expect, before we come to you.
Do they do a monthly tally or no?
Mm-mm. They do only an annual survey. That's all we required in code. So
Survey of who?
the haulers and the
Not
processors.
Okay,
Yeah.
not the residents.
No.
Yeah, Councilman Eskridge.
You done?
I'm done.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So Donna, there's been a lot of talk about glass and need for glass recycling, but limited options for what you do with glass. What can you
No market.
tell us about that?
Right now, we have one contractor is in Kansas City. It's Ripple Glass that takes our glass right now from our drop-off sites. And they make it into various things like insulation products and things of that nature. There really isn't another market that's closer, so there is a cost for transporting that material. The option of recycling glass in your single stream at your curbside is not an option because it actually breaks in the trucks and ends up polluting the other materials that are in there. So it gets stuck in the cardboard, gets stuck in the paper, and then we can't recycle that properly. So we're continuing to do the drop-off site glass, that's fine. I'm looking at some alternatives. I just, in fact, sent out a couple of things to a couple of my water and wastewater guys because there's a town in Virginia that's using crushed glass as bedding material for pipes. So that's, just a matter of trying to get that into action, but that's something we might want to consider. It's a really good material once it's been broken down to use for that.
Similarly, and get Thomas and Lonnie's attention, I'd heard in Austin that they use it for a base for some paving products, sidewalks maybe, or even streets, I guess.
They do it in Germany.
Really cuts it.
It's just saying, didn't it?
Written cuts.
Other questions before I do a follow-up on Mr. Eskridge's? I just heard you say that many of the single-stream haulers don't recycle glass.
No, they do not.
I've heard from a few residents that said they changed recycling companies because they would take glass.
Now, there may be some, and there's probably a select few out there that will actually separate it. They'll
Yeah.
tell you to put your glass into a separate container, and they have some way of means of separating within their
Just don't
truck.
dump it, yeah. So
Yeah.
otherwise, when that curbside recycler grabs that bin from in front of my apartment, they just throw it all in and crush it and figure it out later?
Yeah, it gets sorted at the processor site, that's correct.
I kind of assumed there were bins on the truck and they kind of hand sorted it along the way.
Some do. There is, I think, one company, at least in Lincoln, that does that way.
Other questions from the council? All
Very
right.
good, thank you. And Lonnie?
Got any clever things to say?
You gotta,
Well,
Yeah.
not quite as exciting as Banniversary,
the
but we'll
goblin's
see.
been thrown down with Banniversary. How can you top that? Yeah.
Set the bar.
Well, good afternoon. Wanted to just touch base real quick and give you an update with the nice weather that we have. We hope we get like another, 200 days just like this, because folks are already starting to get out and get busy on 2019 construction projects. And I know you get a lot of questions once in a while from constituents on things, what's going on, and certain requests for information, and we put together a little flyer on this season, some activities that we'll get up on the website. But I did want to bounce through the website just quickly. We've done some improvements and some new updates, and so just to kind of give you a sense or remind folks on how to navigate if you are looking for some project information. So, of course, most of you are familiar with our street closures portion of the website. It's got a map that will dynamically zoom in and out and let you go click on projects and get information. If I go up here as an example and click on Havelock, it's got name of the project, start and end dates, project contact, all of that related information. Some of these have more detailed. If you want to click on the box here, it'll bring up another window. See how our Wi-Fi is doing. So again, give you a little more information about the scope of project, access locations, maybe detour route information, and the whole 9 yards. So that's street closures. We have been also really pushing folks to use the Waze app. If you remember from last year, we are a Connected Citizens Program member with Waze, and if you sign up and start tracking your morning and evening commute, you'll find that because we are tied and we're updating and working with the Waze folks more directly to include lane closures and detour routes, gives folks a good way to navigate their commute. It's pretty dynamic and up to date, and we'll warn you as you're leaving the office or from home, about a certain route or if there is traffic congestion. So that's pretty cool. If I bounce back to the overall projects page, we do have a projects map that you can bring up as well. And I've got that up on this other window. And this just shows you from a GIS layer perspective all of the proposed activity in 2019. And there's a lot of information on this map. If you want to bring up a legend, we can see that the different project types, whether it's water, wastewater, roadways, private utility work, all of those things are listed here, even partners at StarTran, some projects. And so, again, it's really a good way to get folks information on the activity that we've got planned this year. And kind of the same point and click type information. If I go up here and click on a line, it will tell me that this is one of our residential rehabilitation projects. Again, start, end dates, project contact information, phone numbers for folks to get all of that information. Blue for our friends in utilities, so water valve, water main replacements, again, all the various infrastructure types are on there. If folks are curious about a few of the more major projects, similar to that Havelock one, there is a place here that you can go to, construction projects. and pull up more of a synopsis or a summary on some of those major projects that are ongoing. For an example here, if I click on the Pine Lake project, again, more of a scope, update, there's design information, there's ongoing projects and progress that folks can see and get engaged with, as well as a breakdown on some of the schedule information.
And up-to-date pictures, those are box pictures from last week's construction.
Yeah, so we've had inspectors out and doing a good job of trying to get more intense photos of progress as it's going along, so folks can see that. And then the other one, of course, is projects still in some final design or study. Again, we've got another tab for all of that work that's ongoing as well. So proposed design plans, snapshots of things that are coming, either end of the season, projects that haven't been bid yet, or things for even next season if they're in study or design. So, and then of course we've got some information on the stormwater drainage and water quality improvement projects as well. So, a lot of information on the website. Again, been pointing a lot of folks here. This is really stays up to date and pretty fresh in terms of content, schedule changes, kind of the constant rhythm of work going on. And we're just really gearing up. Things are going to be getting busy. We got a lot of projects in the bid line, things that are getting started. And Thomas and our folks in project delivery have been busy. We put together, like I mentioned, this flyer. So this will give you a snapshot of some of the other major work that's going on, from new projects and growth projects to pavement maintenance, optimization things. Again, just kind of a quick snapshot. And we do have some of the keyword search info if folks want to bounce directly to those things on the website. So that's really what we wanted to bring you today. Make sure you had some information, remind you a little bit about the website, and if you've got questions, we can take those. If you digest some of this and have questions later, sure hit us up. Councilman Eskridge has a question.
Yes, Councilman Eskridge.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ron.
So this is great, thanks, because getting in the construction season is really helpful for people to be able to see what's going on and what they can expect. In the sales tax discussion, we kept hearing a lot about our wheel tax and where those funds are going for. So where in the system could citizens go to see where their wheel taxes?
You know, that's
being
something
spent?
we've been talking about internally too. If you're familiar with the transportation strategy project, the LincolnOnTheMove.com, all that information is there, those wheel budgets, the sources,
Okay.
the expenditures. We've talking about an updated streets page within construction, because a lot of people have been, you know, having that question as they drive and see the work going on. So I think what we'll try to do is grab a few of those graphics and basically duplicate that on the
Great.
city's website page.
Okay.
So look for that pretty soon.
Thanks.
We'll go here for
And I would ask you to do that for the quarter-cent sales tax money as it begins to come in too, because people are gonna wanna know.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll be having some more formal discussions on that. We're pulling the ACT committee together, you know, in the coming weeks, months, and probably getting a whole separate game plan. I would envision, you know, we haven't had a lot of detailed discussion yet, but probably a standalone tab area to track that project, the expenditures, how the revenues are looking, the projects that are just from that specific program. So, yeah, it's a good point.
Councilwoman Raybold.
You know, I just want to reinforce what Carl and Roy have been saying, because we get asked that question so much. And
At least
I
once or
know
twice per
Mickey
minute.
Esposito did a great summary of the percentages on the wheel tax, exactly what it must be used exclusively for. It can't be siphoned off to do
Right.
projects. And I think there's so much misinformation that is being perpetuated and about the wheel taxes being used for other things besides our roads. And I think if you just take what Mickey has, you know, summarized, that was really, really good, in listing all the percentages that is prescribed by our codes, our statutes, and in our charter, that we cannot, it must go towards our roads. That would be really helpful. And then I love Roy's idea about bringing credibility to that quarter-cent sales tax and
Yeah.
showing exactly these are the projects, and each one of the different quadrants that are being worked on. I think that is, you know, people will wanna know, and we have to be able to assure them that we are
Went to it.
being forthright and transparent and accountable.
Good comment.
Councilwoman Gaylor Baird.
Thanks for being here, guys. With
Yeah.
the recommendations of the Transportation Coalition, many of which have already been taken under advisement and implemented, does this reflect any of those? Or do you have any update on those recommendations that were happening regardless of the outcome of the sales tax?
Yeah, certainly ones on the O&M side in terms of some of those recommendations for, you know, the different treatments and inspections, some of the crack sealing work and those other things that we're out doing. Probably those things that we're incorporating now into design will be more so felt probably in the 2020 season, but I'm trying to go through the list in my head of the
Well,
19 that we've adopted. I'm sure there's,
So on page 3, pavement sealing helps keep good streets good. That was one of the recommendations of the coalition, is to keep good streets good and reduce our costs. So that's one right then and there, on there. Continuing the residential street rehabilitation program, so we're still doing that. Those are two that I can think of off the top of my head.
certainly
would
when
be
we talk
reflective.
things like some of the lane widths and a few of those on some of the newer, you know, development-related projects that are on a fast track, those things will be incorporated. So some of that East A Street, East Van Dorn Street, yeah, those will be accommodating those recommendations.
Thank you.
Other questions from the council? Seeing no one, thank you gentlemen very much, we appreciate the update. I appreciate the update, I think, I'll
Thank
speak
you.
for all.
Brother.
Sir, another presentation?
Move.
Okay.
What we got?
I like
Appreciate your time.
DD&D, dedicated, diligent, and efficient.
So we got a 5-minute break.
Yes, I declare this pre-counseled.